I'd like to call the January 20th redistricting meeting to order. Again, I want to thank you all for your patience. I appreciate you guys being here and your patience as we're getting started. Hopefully everybody got their meal. Real quick to get started, at our last meeting, I stated that the detailed information on the maps was going to be posted that day, immediately following that meeting. Some of that was delayed a little bit by trying to work through that. And I also read in some of the testimony, as I read it all last night, that there were some concerns about it. So what I've decided to do for today is I'm going to make today an informational hearing on, and like our listening tours were, okay? So I'm going to keep it open and then give the public more time if they want to review the data and provide any additional input. But I still wanted to have the meeting today simply because there's a lot of folks put some time and effort into it. They came up here, they sacrificed time, they're committed to doing this, and so I'm committed to supporting and respecting that. But when I do open it, we do have 17 conferees. There are some that are in the Senate testifying now, and so we're working the details to make sure that we can deconflict them being in both places. So you'll see I'll move that around a little bit. But in an effort to make sure we get through it, I'd like us to just to do it like we did our listening tours. We'll listen to what they have to say. If you have a question for them, their contact information is on their testimony. Please contact them directly. And this, again, this is an effort to get everybody through. But I wanted to provide our conferees in here and online that opportunity. Richard has uploaded all the testimony on the committee page. Real quick, I do want to thank Federico and Doris Group for the lunch today. Hope you're enjoying that. We do have two new committee members today that will be with us for several days, Representative Stephen Owen and Representative Avery Anderson. Since we're doing informational hearings today, I do need a motion to amend the agenda for tomorrow to indicate the actual bill numbers that were provided today.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Well,
right.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, the four bills that have been or are going to be referenced in this matter, I'd make a motion that we amend our next agenda where we will actually conduct these hearings to include hearings on House Bill 2519, House Bill 2520, House Bill 2521, and House Bill 2522. And for the folks out there, the remainder of the committee, before the end of today's session, I'll find out which of the actual maps are attached to which of those actual bill numbers, even though those bills are up at this point, but would move that we amend our coming agenda to include hearings for those four bills.
Okay, second, we have Representative Hoheisel is the seconded. Any discussion? None? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes, it passes. Okay, the next thing is you all received the minutes from our meeting on the 12th. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Okay. And second by Representative Burrows. Any discussion? None? All in favor? Aye? Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay, also, as we do at the beginning of these, bill introductions or map introductions, are there new maps to be introduced that have gone through the TR process? Seeing none? Okay, so what I'd like to do at this point is, just as a refresher to everyone, we have the four maps that have been talked about, and I would like to have the research department, Jordan, if you will, to kind of go through each one of them, and he's going to click on a few of the tabs just so you can see some of the information on each one. If there's something that you really want to see more, you'll be able to click on your own, but if you want him to do it, we can do that rather quickly. With that, Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jordan Milholland, Legislative Research. If you'll give me just a second, I will share my screen. Okay, so for those of you at home or online and those here in the room, I've pulled up our Kansas Legislative Research Department webpage. I was going to go ahead and walk you through really quickly how to access the technical review reports on our page. So when you visit our homepage at ks.gov, if you look on the left-hand side, we've got subject matter listings. Redistricting has its own link. So if you go to our redistricting page, we have a new link at the top that has a submitted plan. So you'll click on that link, and you can see the 5 plans that have been introduced in either the Senate or House committees. So the first plan is at Astra. If you click on this link, it'll download the PDF. Most of these PDFs with the technical review information are between 120, 130 pages. So I obviously won't be going through all of that today, but you have that available to you if you'd like to dive into that information. I've got the PDFs open on my computer, so I'm going to share that window, and then I will start walking you through the maps. Okay, so the first map I have pulled up in alphabetical order is the Ad Astra map. The packet starts off, as you can see here, with an image of the statewide map, and I've tried to zoom in here for you so you can see some of the detail on it. Moving down through the report, going to the other pages.
Can I remove the picture off of there so you can
Oh.
see the map?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I did zoom in just a bit more. Yes, that zooms in too much. So this is what I can get on the screen here for you. And if you download these documents, you can zoom in as much as you want to into these documents. So the first page of these packets is always the statewide map. You can see all 4 districts on that page. Going down to the next page, we've overlaid the 2012 districts, the ones that are currently in place, over the proposed plan, so you can see a comparison of those lines. And then following that, we have a listing of any of the counties that are split by any of the districts, and we've zoomed in to show you exactly where those counties are split at. So Ad Astra here is split in Pawnee County. It appears to be near the town of Larned there that you can see between the 1st and 4th. The next county that's split is Douglas County, between the 1st and 2nd near Lawrence. And Wyandotte County is the 3rd county split in this plan, between the 2nd and 3rd here. And then on the report side of it, we've got a population summary report as the first page of data. So you can see that this plan has a 0% deviation and a 0-person deviation, meaning that each of those 4 districts has the exact same population between them. And we've also listed some other information about different ranges, different statistics on this plan. And I'll go ahead and move to the blue stem plan next. So here is the statewide image of the blue stem plan. This plan shows this page again shows the 2012 districts overlaid. And then the first county split in the blue stem plan is Reno County. The second county split in blue stem is Lyon County, near Emporia, between the 2nd and 1st. The third county split in the blue stem plan is Brown County, near Sabetha, Kansas, between the 1st and 2nd. The 4th county split by the blue stem plan is Johnson County, and it looks like there's various cities here, but you can see those in more detail on the plan. I'll also mention too that some of the detailed statistics in the report, there's a listing of the different cities in Kansas, which districts they're in. And so you can see, for example, any cities that are split as well. You can dive into that information and see exactly what percentages and stuff are split. And next, I'll move on to the Buffalo plan. Here is the statewide image of the Buffalo plan, Buffalo 2 plan. This is the plan with the 2012 districts. The first county split by the Buffalo 2 plan is Johnson County, between the 2nd and 3rd. Lyon County is split between the 2nd and 1st, near Emporia. Geary County is split between the 2nd and 1st. And Reno County is split between the 1st and 4th. Finally, we had the Sunflower plan. Briefly, here is the statewide image of that plan. The 2012 district overlay on that plan. The first county split by Sunflower is Barton County between the 2nd and 1st. Riley County is also split between the 2nd and 1st. Douglas County is split between the 2nd and 1st. And Labette County is split between the 2nd and 1st. And again, you can access these reports on the KLRD webpage, as I've shown earlier. You can also access these reports on the committee page for the House Redistricting Committee.
All right, Jordan, thank you. Very quickly, I know Representative Burrows has a few process questions that he's grouped together. So if you will, for research and revisers, if you could help them out with the answers to these.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding efficiencies from us and the process moving forward, I've been approached with a number of questions in reference to how the congressional process works. Should we kick out a bill and goes to each individual chamber and gets vetoed or gets supported? What is the next process after that? Because I do know that there is a difference between the state and Senate maps versus the congressional maps. So for those listening and those that have interest, I would ask for some kind of guidance and an update if we could, Mr. Chairman.
Jordan, Eileen. Okay, we're going to pause for just a minute. Okay, he has another one that might help in this. Go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe the question I should be asking is, does every map go to the courts? Every map goes to the courts.
Which court?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. This is my first session, and I'm second chair on this committee. So only the congressional maps, only the state maps go to the state Supreme Court. The congressional maps go to the district. I believe, if there's a lawsuit, they go to the district courts to be heard.
So, and I think that's some of the point of clarification. There seems to be some question as to the process in regards to the statewide maps and the congressional maps. And I really believe it's important that we as committee members understand the significance and importance of how this operation works with the congressional maps, because we are working the congressional maps now. So if I understand correctly, if this go through the system, and the maps are passed or vetoed, is it both they go to the courts, or is it vetoed and then it goes to the courts if it's litigated, to be litigated, or if there's a suit brought forward?
If you're not. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Burrows, I'm confused as to what you're asking when you say between the two, if they're vetoed. So when you say between the two, are you talking about between congressional and then the state legislative?
No, ma'am. I'm talking about, and thank you, and I'll clarify. There's been some questions about how the congressional map is going to move through the process. We can all speculate as to which map is going to be accepted and which one isn't. We're going to have those discussions in each individual chamber. But once the map is passed, can it go directly to the courts, or does a suit have to be brought forward? And at what court level will that suit be levied?
Okay, so a suit has to be filed, and it would be heard at the district level. For the congressional.
Congressional. And I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I think it's important that we realize that there is two different processes in place for what we're doing here on the statewide maps versus the congressional maps. And there has been much speculation about how the process works. And in all fairness, I don't have all of those answers. And so I do rely on legislative research and revisers to provide that guidance. And I thought it was important, instead of just myself having that knowledge, that everybody in the room has the same access to the same information, and those that may be listening. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question.
Yeah, no worries. And I think if it would be helpful, we're meeting again tomorrow. So if by tomorrow we could have a little process map that we lay out that just shows the difference, and I think it'll clean that up for everybody, and that's something we can post and make it more available for everybody else. Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is just kind of a housekeeping, because today is now informational. If we hear from conferees today, that still, does it count as testimony? How does that count? And for what and where? How should we determine that?
Yeah, I'm just making sure I got it right. Yeah. So it is going to be considered testimony today. That's why it's an open hearing that we're going to do, and then we'll do that again as well tomorrow. And we're going to cover a lot of those details here in a minute, but that is the point, that we'll have more testimony tomorrow. And again, the reason, I appreciate the question, because I wanted to do that just because I didn't want there to be any confusion about the amount of data when it was available. And this way it gives people more time. And I was going to cover it at the end, and I'll cover it now as well. You know, we say that you need testimonies provided 24 hours in advance. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Go ahead and provide it. I don't care if it's an hour and a half before. I'll try to get it to everybody, even if it comes in right away. Can't guarantee if it's less than an hour and a half before I can get it to everybody, but we will make every effort to get all the information to everybody, right? Okay. I appreciate that question too. Okay. Just trying to make sure I'm on track. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and start hearing, because I want to make sure we get through the conferees. So when I ask you to come up, or if you're online, if you'll just, state your name, your organization, and then when you provide your input, if there's a certain map that you are supporting, opposing, neutral, just state the maps, the map or maps, whichever one that is for you, because I noticed in a lot of the testimony there's two different maps that everybody's supporting. So I think this will make that better. And again, like I said, in the interest of time, let's focus on what they have to say. We are allotting, just like we did before, 3 minutes to each conferee. The Vice Chair, Representative Ralph, will hold up a sign indicating the amount of time left. He'll start with a minute and work it down to stop. Just ask that you support that, and then we can continue on and try to get everybody involved in this process. If, as you've reviewed the data, like I said, and you have an addendum to what you've already submitted, or there's some more stuff you want to do, please send it in. You can send it in to right into our office, or you can send it to the redistricting email address. Okay? Finally, the last thing is, some people have asked, the Senate is hearing at the same time we're hearing. There are 2 conferees so far that I know of that are in both places. We've deconflicted those, and we're going to try to make sure we get to hear them in both locations, and I'll work that into the schedule as we go along. So I'll be doing that. Now that I think hopefully I've cleared things up. Maybe I haven't made it more that way, but if I do, we can get that at the end. I do intend to resume here tomorrow, but let's go ahead and do this. Let's call the first conferee, and I'm going to start with Representative Poskin, because I know you have other events and things you have to go to, so I'd like you to come on up.
Oh, red. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I'm Representative Marilyn Poskin from Kansas House District 20, representing Leawood and Overland Park in Johnson County. Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today on congressional maps, as some legislators, but not all, were told we could not participate in the listening sessions. We are told that these maps are the result of constituent input from across the state over 14 sessions. While I could not participate in the August 12, 2021 session in Overland Park, I was there in person, and I'm here today to remind you of what nearly every single person in the full capacity crowd. They said, do not break up the 3rd Congressional District. Keep the core of Johnson and Wyandotte counties together. Clearly, these maps fail to do so. I stand before you today, not a single voice, but 8,249 voices from House District 20 alone that voted for me to be their voice in Topeka. 8,249 voices in House District 20 want me to reiterate their desire to keep the core of CD3 together. 8,249 voices for you to weigh against the one voice that said to her big dollar donors, I guarantee you we can draw 4 Republican congressional maps. I challenge you and the committee to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next will be Sherry Grogan.
Hello.
Welcome.
Chairman and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Sherry Grogan, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. I am a proponent for the Blue Stem and Buffalo 2 map and opponents for the others. The Sunflower map ignores public input by putting Wyandotte and Johnson County in separate districts. It also splits Lawrence. And I had a hard time verifying the deviation, but I think that's been corrected now on the map with the insets for Douglas and Labette. But my recommendation is to set this map aside, the Sunflower map. The Astra Map splits Wyandotte County, but keeps Johnson County whole. The concerns include the delusion of the minority vote. This map shows, it's a heat map of the African American population. And this is the proposed line, the new district line. And you can see that African American vote is on the north side of the boundary. This map also splits the Hispanic community of interest. This map shows the Hispanic voting age population. And specifically, Armourdale is on the north end of the line, and Argentine south of the boundary. Dividing Kansas City, Kansas has the potential to increase social unrest. The unified government serves the majority of Wyandotte County, and that is the reason why we should keep Wyandotte County whole. Edwardsville, right alongside the Legends there, has been split into 2 districts, and that is an economic development area. The transportation network of the Kansas City metropolitan area would be split by this map as well. We have 435, I-70, 635, N7 highway that would be split across multiple districts. They're right there by the Kansas City, Missouri border. It's a crucial route out of Kansas into Missouri. Anderson County has very little in common with Johnson and Wyandotte County, especially from a culture perspective. It is a predominantly white and rural community. Lawrence was moved to the 1st district, and it also doesn't make sense to be with rural counties. The Native American lands have been separated in this map as well. Thank you for your allowing me to testify. I believe I'm out of time.
Ma'am, thank you very much. And again, everybody has your testimony, and it's in the file, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just inquiry.
Parker.
Are those maps attached to her testimony? They are attached? Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to look at the maps.
Yes, sir. They are. Okay, next up will be Marth Pint. Are you online?
For me, Seal King.
No, from the League of Women Voters of Kansas.
Excuse me, I'm Seal King. I'm Advocacy Chair for the League of Women Voters of Kansas,
Welcome.
and I was going to talk about
Okay.
the Blue Stem map. How, since I'm speaking for a large group and for a map that we designed, how long do I have?
3 minutes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, you can see the testimony is extensive because we are a large group. We represent places across county, across the state, and we have a number of participating people that helped us draw these maps in the different areas. We're looking for equal population. Sorry. We're looking for equal population, continuous. Pardon me. Because the league is non-partisan.
Ma'am, would you like to just take a minute? We'll have somebody else come up so you can get some, I think somebody went to get you some water, and then we'll have you come right back. Okay, yes, ma'am. So we'll just go ahead and give her a minute. So we'll go to Aaron Woods next. And I think Aaron is online, is that correct?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for providing the opportunity to share feedback on the congressional maps that were introduced this week. I'm just going to turn my video on real quick too. With many others, asking that the redistricting committees keep the entire Kansas side of the Kansas City metro area intact in the 3rd district. At that time, I explained the many activities in my own personal life that demonstrate that Wyandotte and Johnson counties are part of one community of interest. From sporting KC games to kids participating in athletic activities in both counties, to purchasing, building, and remodeling supplies across the entire Kansas metro area, to volunteering at vaccine clinics in both counties, and even things as simple as shopping, dining out, and my drive to the airport are all encompassed in Wyandotte and Johnson counties. Some of the maps presented on Tuesday, United, Buffalo 2, and Blue Stem, do a good job of reflecting what citizens in attendance at those meetings asked for. But with the Ad Astra and Sunflower maps, I was struck by the number of my regular activities I described as a person living in the Kansas City metro area that would now have me straddling 2 congressional districts. I also want to point out that there is a story being told by Interstate 435. Those of us in the metro area know that this is a loop that connects the entire Kansas City metro area. This landmark demonstrates powerfully that those of us in the metro area on the Kansas side are one community of interest. We share roads, hospitals, jobs, entertainment venues, and more. Additionally, I believe it would be inefficient and nonsensical to have 2 different congressional representatives representing the metro area. Not to mention, I don't believe the citizens of Wyandotte County will have adequate representation if they are combined with citizens way down near the Oklahoma border or even further out west on the Colorado border. They do not share the same culture or concerns. I ask again that you keep all of Wyandotte County together with the majority of Johnson County in the 3rd district, as our urban core shares many of the same issues and concerns. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Next will be Judy Ansell, online as well.
Hello. Can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, we can now.
Okay, great. Hold on a second. I'm pulling the testimony. I'm representing the Cross Border Network, which is a local nonprofit organization dealing with human rights. We support the Voter Rights Network and the Kansas League maps, as well as I think it's the Blue Stem map, Representative Burrows. All of those keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together substantially. And all of those, I think, reflect the needs of our metro area. It appears to me that all the other maps would significantly not only harm our voice in the federal government, but our rights as well. As I said, I'm president of a nonprofit. We do international human rights organizing and send delegations to countries in Latin America in order to try to improve human rights and to investigate the roots of migration. Almost all of our members live in Johnson and Wyandotte County. We have a few members in Missouri. And so keeping the two Kansas counties together is very important to us for our work, because most of our work, a lot of our work at least, has to deal with federal issues, both foreign policy and immigration policy. We are a community of interest between Johnson County and Wyandotte County. And to divide us more congressional districts than we already are, as I said, we have members in Missouri as well, will muffle our voice. It'll handicap our free speech in our right to lobby our government. It will make it much more difficult and dilute our voice. Over the years, we've been able to build long-term strong relationships with our members of Congress, whether they be Democrat or Republican. And this has provided security for us, as well as allowing us to provide in-depth information to our representative. In fact, at one point, we had a member of our organization doing human rights work down in Mexico, right across the border, who was arrested. It was urgent for us to be able to contact our congressperson and get help, to get the congressperson to contact the State Department for help. Having our voice diluted among several members of Congress would make that more difficult and less likely to protect the safety of our members. So to us, having one congressperson familiar with us and our issues makes all the difference. We currently work with our congressperson in the 3rd District, as well as Emmanuel Cleaver over in Missouri. It would be an undue burden on us to have to relate to another, a 3rd member of Congress, who particularly, if you adopt the maps that either put Wyandotte County in a different congressional district or split Wyandotte County into another district whose interests are more rural than our urban ones, I think it would significantly dilute our voice. Our issues resonate in urban areas much more than in less densely populated ones. We do a lot cooperatively between Johnson, Wyandotte, and Jackson counties. And so dividing us puts barriers, and that would be both real and psychological. So I strongly urge you to respect the wishes of the residents of both Wyandotte and Johnson County and keep us together in one congressional district. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Next up will be Michael Williams on WebEx as well. Okay. We'll come back then to Michael. How about Davis Hammett?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Davis, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Croft and members of the committee. First, I just want to raise some points of concern. I'm actually still kind of confused at what happened at the beginning of this meeting, what it means for this to be informational, if there is a distinction between today and tomorrow, or if there's no distinction. I wish that we would have been notified of this so I could have done additional analysis of these maps before submitting testimony. But with that, I'm also concerned about the simultaneous hearings happening where it's impossible for a person to give a hearing in both the House and Senate on these maps. But the main concern that I want to raise to y'all actually applies to all of these maps, which is that of college campuses, and particularly the youth vote, a population that I work a lot with. College campuses are an embodiment of the 26th Amendment of the United States Constitution, where they lowered the voting age to 18. Courts have found that college campus communities, they're a community of interest that can be protected and represented in redistricting. So I'd like y'all to take special attention both with the congressional maps, but also as you get into the state legislative maps, to not divide college communities. And this is not just the campus, but the community surrounding it where the student population would be. I do want to raise a specific concern about the Astra Map, which appears to be a pretty blatant partisan gerrymander. And some of the initial analysis I've seen shows that it is that, an extreme partisan gerrymander in favor of the Republican Party. I have a specific concern related to how Congressional District 1 is drawn to scoop in Lawrence and the University of Kansas, thereby putting the four largest state universities all into a heavily partisan gerrymandered map, diluting the youth vote's power, therefore abridging their constitutional rights to be represented. And then also, I just want to say that in the direction of the Blueston map, and I believe there's a couple other maps, the idea of combining KU and K-State as similar communities of interest, again, embodied in the 26th Amendment, I think is a promising idea that y'all should pursue. So again, I think that as you talk about communities of interest, it's important to consider that also not discriminating for age and not diluting the youth vote. It's especially something of concern because whenever districts are gerrymandered in such a way, they aren't competitive, and therefore politicians don't even try to reach out to voters. So if you're not even trying to reach out to young voters, they get less engaged, they get less invested in our community, and they're more likely to leave our community because you don't allow them to have a stake and a voice in the future of Kansas. So thank you so much for hearing my testimony.
Yeah, thank you. And Davis, if you, as you talked about analysis, if you come up with more analysis, please feel free to send it in by tomorrow. That'd be great. We're glad to look at it. Next up, we could go back to Ms. King if you want to. Are you ready? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Seal King. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Kansas. I'm the advocacy chair currently. It was the League of Women Voters and our associates that came up with the Bluestem map. We used partners across the state and our members to develop these maps, trying to get equal population, contiguousness, compactness, not diluting minority voting strength, and districts easily understood by the local units of government using natural features, major streets, and boundaries. Because the League is nonpartisan, we did not consider partisan demographics, competitiveness, or even the incumbents' home addresses. For the overall plan, we worked to make the 3 metropolitan area-dominated districts, 2, 3, and 4, as compact as possible, and recognize the differences between the growth areas of the state and those areas that are losing population. Only 4 counties are split, and no precincts are split in the Bluestem map. The overall population deviation was low at 0.04 for a total deviation of 309 people. However, we did look at making this more with less deviation, and that could be achieved with splitting only 2 counties, one by Emporia and one by Hutchinson, and it would be 0.00 with only 13 people difference in 1 and 3 and 2 people in districts 2 and 4. We chose not to do that because of the timely preparation that counties require to get ready for the 2020 election, and the guidelines that this committee adopted on January 12th, which said we shouldn't split precincts. So the 4th district includes the Wichita-Winfield and is recognized by the Federal Office of Management and Budget as having employment interchange, except for Reno County, which we included to get Hutchinson, which is heavily impacted. For the 3rd district, Johnson and Wyandotte are kept together, except for southern and western parts of Johnson County. It's the largest concentration. We have As you heard from others, there's a lot of similarities between Wyandotte and Johnston that count importantly. The second district adds 16 counties, and they are regarding federal issues likely to be addressed by Congress. This state has the state's two largest research universities, the only municipal university and one of 3 regional state universities, the state's 2 largest military installations, Fort Leavenworth and Fort Riley, the Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Iowa, and Sac and Fox Nations reservations, and the Haskell Nation Indian University all in one. It includes the major U.S. Corps of Engineer flood control reservations and recreational areas. And the first district is primarily rural, lower population density of Kansas, most of which has been in the first for a long time. And it's dominated by the agricultural industry, so important to the Kansas economy. The broad areas of interest of residents in this district includes federal.
Ms. King, your time's. It's time.
Okay, thank you.
I know, ma'am, I know you're trying to get it all in. What I want to tell the committee is they have an extensive document, and it's in your packet. It's got 10 pages of testimony, really goes into some great detail. And I appreciate you trying to summarize it all in here, but it's actually better if you do read all this. It's really good stuff. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks for being flexible. Yes, ma'am. All right, next up will be Michael Papa. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony today. I also submitted written, so this will be brief. Mainstream Coalition is a nonpartisan nonprofit working to empower informed participation in the political process. We have many of the same concerns that the other conferees, either in person, virtual today, or who submitted written testimony. So I won't go into detail except to say that Ad Astra and Sunflower are egregiously partisan, and they look very gerrymandered, and would not like to see those go forward. I'd like to focus a little bit more on process today, as we have in the past, as people have been asking for throughout this entire process. It's been very confusing, even up till today, and I know and I thank you for the extra time, Chair and committee. Thank you so much for the extra time, because we did not have enough time to actually analyze the maps, and come up with a really good sense of what each of them does, because we didn't have that data until yesterday. But I would like to say that we believe that even an extra day isn't enough time. We had a deadline, the public had a deadline of submitting maps 5 days prior, and I would urge the committee to give the public that same time frame to analyze the maps. And so we ask that you don't vote on them tomorrow or pass them tomorrow, which is, I think, what was said at the beginning of the meeting. Again, it's still a little confusing. So a bit of clarifications, I think, again, would be much appreciated. Again, we do oppose Ad Astra and Sunflower for the reasons mentioned before and probably after me. And I thank you again for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next up will be Mike Taylor. Okay, so I knew you were over in the Senate earlier, right? Good, I'm glad you made it.
I appreciate that. I got Senator Masterson to let me go early, and you've let me come late, so I appreciate it. I made both meetings. I'm Mike Taylor. I am representing the Voter Rights Network of Wyandotte County, which is a citizen group that has taken since last fall a keen interest in the way the 3rd Congressional District was drawn. We were involved in all of the fall hearings, and our message then was urging, as you've heard from many others, to leave as much of Johnson and Wyandotte County together in the 3rd District as possible. That advice obviously was not listened to or followed with the Ad Astra or the Sunflower Map. I don't think I heard a single person say, please split Wyandotte County right down the middle, north and south, along I-70. In the early, a little history lesson, in the early 1800s, the Massachusetts governor, Elbridge Gerry, drew a state map that resembled a salamander. And the Boston Globe coined the phrase gerrymandering for that map. That phrase has obviously stuck around. And if Governor Jerry could be here today, he'd be proud of that Astra and Sunflower because it is a classic example of gerrymandering. Wyandotte County and Johnson counties are strong communities of interest, and I won't go into all those reasons. I've included it in my testimony. You've heard it from others. So splitting the two counties the way that it was done doesn't make any sense. It looks purely partisan. And I will also point out that Wyandotte County is one of the most diverse counties in the United States of America, with Black residents, Hispanic residents, and I just learned this recently, we have the largest population of disabled citizens of any county in Kansas. So clearly those communities of interest by both of the Sunflower and Astra maps dilute that vote and that influence that they would have. And Johnson and Wyandotte counties work closely together on a lot of federal funding projects, so having one representative makes a lot of sense. I would say that we do support the Blue Stem. I worked some on that with my group. Senator Sykes introduced a map called United, which makes a lot of sense as well and looks compact. So we would support the Buffalo 2, Blue Stem, and United. We have to adamantly oppose Astra and Sunflower. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, next up, I believe, is Mark McCormick. Are you standing in? Okay, great. Welcome.
Committee chairs and members of the House Redistricting Committee, thank you for the opportunity to present in front of you today. My name is Mark McCormick. I'm the Director of Strategic Communications for the ACLU of Kansas. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that works to preserve and strengthen the civil rights and civil liberties of all Kansans. During last summer's town halls, we saw a phenomenal outpouring of civic engagement. Kansans from across the state tuned in, showed up, and provided comment on redistricting. Two themes came across loud and clear. First, calls for committee leadership to commit to a fair and accessible redistricting process, and two, calls to keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together. Of the more than 500 pieces of testimony, more than half of those emphasized that second point. Unfortunately, this week's proceedings ignored both. The Astra Map brought by the committee chair bisects Wyandotte County. It breaks up the urban core, potentially disenfranchising a concentrated community of people of color, and disregards entirely the calls from hundreds of Kansas voters to keep their community intact. The Sunflower Map slices Wyandotte off from Johnson County completely. It is also important to note that this process this week has been neither fair nor accessible. Congressional maps were introduced on Tuesday. Hearings on those maps were scheduled for today, Thursday. Committees must receive testimony at least 24 hours to the committee hearing. For any normal bill, that's a tight turnaround, but possible. But this is redistricting. And these are maps that have complex underlying data sets. Those data sets were not made available to the public for review before the testimony deadline. Without the data sets, it's impossible to evaluate whether these maps are legal or constitutional. It's like holding a hearing on a bill with provisions that aren't included and expecting people to vote on it sight unseen. To make this even more clear, without access to the data underlying these maps, it is impossible to analyze the maps with any specificity to determine whether there is partisan or racial gerrymandering at play here and to what degree. The speed at which this committee moved from introduction to hearing is troubling. The lack of publicly available data to allow for legitimate analysis of the maps is troubling. The disregard for the will of the people who were very clear that they wanted to keep the 3rd District together is troubling. We ask the committee leadership to rethink the course of their actions, slow down the process, allow for a reasonable amount of time for public comment, provide all information on maps publicly, and listen to the people with regard to District 3. We have a long process ahead of us before we get these new maps. We have time to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Connie Brown, and I will remind, just so you know, the timer's to my left, so if you can see the timer, it will help you keep track, but you did great. Thank you. Next up is Connie Brown.
Connie Brown. Collins, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll turn on my video as well. Yes, I'm longtime Wyandotte County resident in the Bethel Wellborn community of Kansas City, Kansas. I also serve as the founder and organizer of Voter Rights Network of Wyandotte County. We advocate for voter rights, most recently hosting redistricting meetings with mapping assistance provided by the League of Women Voters of Johnson County. I come before you today to urge the Redistricting Committee to utilize our map development work and adopt the proposed maps for Congressional District 3. They include keeping Wyandotte County whole in the 3rd Congressional District and connected to the core of Johnson County, including its 2 largest municipalities, Overland Park and Olathe. We developed these maps in conjunction with the League of Women Voters of Kansas and fully support the CD3 map along with the statewide Blue Stem Congress map submitted by the League. We also support Representative Burrow's Buffalo 2 map, which is similar to the Blue Stem Congress map, as well as the United map submitted by Senator Sykes. We in Wyandotte County are an urban and industrial hub in the multi-county Greater Kansas City metro area. Our community of interest includes Johnson County, which we share many services and resources with, such as our communities. We do share neighborhood ideals, a desire for clean, well-maintained neighborhoods with access to services, leisure activities for family and children. I walk at KCK Community College, Luce Park, and KC Mo, and have taken yoga in Overland Park. In education, we share educational opportunities with Johnson. In the metro area, I have personally attended KCK Community College, Johnson County Community College, and Penn Valley Community College in Jackson County, all in the same time frame. In healthcare, we share healthcare services. Johnson County healthcare providers and residents utilize our Wyandotte County COVID-19 vaccination and testing sites on State Avenue. We share other healthcare resources also, such as KU Med Center. We share transportation systems. I-35 extends to I-29, goes to the airport, and also going south, it feeds right into Metcalf Avenue, which is a major artery in Johnson County. We share employment and go back and forth across state lines. Across county lines, but we do not share the community of interest with the bulk of Miami County, which is mostly rural, or we don't share community of interest with District 2 either. We support the maps that I indicated before, and we do not support the Ad Astra or Sunflower maps, which would greatly dilute our voting representation. We oppose both of those maps, but we do support, again, the maps that are presented by the League of Women Voters. As a committee, you heard all the testimony in the August 12th and November 30th hearings. Please heed the message, which was loud and clear, to keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together in the 3rd. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And to everyone, I just need to apologize. I said it was Connie Brown, and I failed to mention her last name. It's Connie Brown Collins. That's who that was, and she has testimony in as well. So thank you very much for your testimony. Next up will be Patricia Weiler. We can come back. Next will be Carol Fields.
I'm unmuted and I'll get my camera up here in a moment. Sorry, I'm not used to this combination and I'm afraid I'm going to be a reader, so I have to pull up. I don't memorize well, or think clearly enough. So I thank you for the time to speak today. Again, I'm Carol Fields, and I live in the far northeast corner of Johnson County. Are you hearing and seeing me all right?
Yes, ma'am, we're seeing and hearing you well.
I'm an active member or a volunteer participant in several Northeast Johnson County and Wyandotte KCK organizations, and I think the map designed by the League of Women Voters with a voter rights network of Wyandotte County is rightly focused on continuity and representing communities and interests instead of splitting them up for what seems to me to be partisan gains. As population changes don't allow us to keep all of Wyandotte and Johnson together in Congressional District 3, I think their map, which leaves out some rural areas like Aubrey and Spring Hill and Edgerton and Gardner and most of DeSoto, is a good way to make District 3 boundaries keep consistent with representing the character of those of us living in the KC metro area in Kansas. It's not democratic to split up the two counties, dramatically changing many resident voting options and breaking up communities of like interest to supposedly protect more sparsely populated rural areas' interests. I think they too will be better represented by being together into more continuing contiguous districts rather than being combined with more metropolitan areas of the state into other districts. That allows the most populated contiguous areas in Wyandotte and Johnson to act as we are, one in so many ways, a part of the greater KC area, such as transportation, shopping, utilities, large and small businesses, services, broadcasting, entertainment, etc. Our population density, unlike any other area this size in Kansas, means we share views on quality of life and community that are often alike, though different from the rest of the state. While I have lived in Johnson County over 40 years, I was raised west of here, graduated from KU, lived in Wyandotte 5.5 years, and worked there most of my working careers. To go most places from my home in Roland Park, I drive county line. I walk to get my hair cut on the Wyandotte side of the line. When I go west on I-35, I go through Wyandotte. My medical care is in KCK. A major portion of shoppers in Roland Park core stores are from Wyandotte, while I shop at Strasser's Hardware in KCK. And many of my friends use both Roland Park and Argentine, use both Argentine and Johnson County libraries. I think if Wyandotte County is split into rural districts, it is discrimination against the urban poor, people of color, and who need better, not less representation. Also, if Johnson is split, Kansas urban dwellers will be underrepresented in Washington, D.C., as they already are, with a favoring of rural areas via 2 senators per state. And again, thank you for listening.
Yes, ma'am, thank you very much. Great timing, too, right on time. Next up will be Dr. Mildred Edwards. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you, members of the committee and Mr. Chairman. I am here on behalf of Mayor Tyrone Garner, the mayor of Wyandotte County, the unified government of Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, who is attending the National Conference of Mayors at this time. You received our written testimony, which supports many of the comments that have already been stated. I'd like to add, however, a few other things that we didn't include. Wyandotte County is the only county in the state that has a city-county consolidated government entity. We're unique. This is one of the many reasons why Wyandotte County should not be split between 2 different congressional districts. Wyandotte County has been represented by both Democrats and Republicans in the U.S. Congress. Jan Myers, Vince Snowbarger, and Kevin Yoder from the Republican Party, and Dennis Moore, now Sharice Davids from the Democrat Party. We've always found that whether we are represented by a Democrat or a Republican, when we are consolidated as a metropolitan area with Johnson County in the 3rd district, that member of Congress has been most attentive to the needs of Wyandotte County. Due to a number of factors, We're the third largest county in the state. We have high rates of poverty. We have challenging healthcare outcomes. Wyandotte County frequently has a lot of interaction with the federal government and needs a member of Congress that has the ability to be attentive to our distinct needs. There's a synergy in the Kansas City metropolitan area that necessitates that Johnson and Wyandotte counties remain in the same congressional district. For instance, there's an association of mayors that works together on a number of issues. There are entities like the Kansas City Transportation Authority that works with communities on Wyandotte and Johnson counties to address our shared transportation issues. Thousands of people live and work in both Johnson and Wyandotte counties. Wyandotte County is home to two major medical centers that serve both Johnson and Wyandotte counties and have numerous issues with the federal government, KU Medical Center and Providence Hospital. We ask that we are speaking in support of the maps that most retain Johnson County and Wyandotte County as one entity in the 3rd District, and we thank you for our time.
Thank you very much. Next will be Thomas Whit.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tom Whit, Executive Director of Equality Kansas. We represent the LGBT community here in the legislature. So we've been working since '06 to get openly LGBT community members elected to the Kansas legislature and, of course, to the U.S. Congress. And it took till 2018 to be successful. When Sharice Davids was elected to the 3rd CD, and Brandon Woodard and Susan Ruiz were elected to this body here. In 2020, Representative Stephanie Byers won election. In 2018, all 3 of the LGBT people that won beat incumbents. The voters chose them. They did not choose their voters. In 2020, all 3 incumbents won re-election before the same voters. Again, their voters chose them. These incumbents did not choose their voters. And Stephanie Byers immediately ran for an open seat that leans Democratic, but we all know that her very existence is cause for controversy politically and in this building. I wanted to talk to you today about communities of interest. I wanted to talk to you about how the LGBT community in Kansas doesn't have a geographic locus. You can't draw a line around a neighborhood and say that's the gay ghetto in Kansas. We don't have a 1978 Castro Street. We don't have a 1975 Greenwich Village, okay? But what we do have are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of LGBT people across the state who live in every community. We live where we were raised, or we live where our careers have taken us. So our community of interest, what I wanted to talk about is how hard it is to actually define where that community of interest is. What we do want to implore you is that as you're drawing these maps, that you don't intentionally draw our voice, our seat at the table, out of existence. But the community of interest I'm going to find myself talking about today is Wyandotte County, of all places, where the Sunflower Map, oh goodness, the Sunflower Map was one of the things that killed redistricting in 2012. The Senate wasn't going to pass that, okay? Then we've got the Astra Map, which literally draws lines through people's backyards in Edwardsville and Muncie in Kansas City, in Wyandotte County. You want to talk about breaking up communities of interest, that'll do it. And on that Sunflower Map, the only way Kansas City, Kansas has shared community of interest with Morton County, which is where Elkhart is in the far southwest corner, is if at some point the state of Kansas is reduced to a single congressional seat. We're not there yet. We still have 4. And these maps, those 2 maps, sorry, I'll tell you what I told the Senate a few minutes ago. They're jokes. They can't be serious. I'm really stunned that leadership introduced those maps. Let's look at maps that really recognize community of interest in this state. I understand my time is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Next is Jay Moyer.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you so much for giving me time to testify today. My name is Jay Moyer, and I'm asking that we create more fair maps, and I am speaking in opposition to the Sunflower Plan and the Astra Plan, as I will point out every single other person that's spoken today, whether virtually or here in person, has spoken against. I'm concerned about these congressional maps because I love, honestly, my representative. I feel as though she is smart and speaks to the values that I hold in my heart. I also know my community, and I don't believe that these maps would create a fair chance for my community to have the representation that it wants and that it deserves in Washington, D.C. I live in Overland Park, which of course is in the 3rd Congressional District. There are few people that I've talked to in my community that don't at least think that our representative is level-headed or thoughtful, and that she helps the community in significant ways. I would be extremely unhappy to reside in a state that has tried to intentionally remove a strong representative, not just for my community, but as Mr. Whit said earlier, the LGBTQ community, which I am also a part of, just for a political power gain. The idea of a democracy is that every person's voice gets heard, even if you don't agree with other people's voices in the room. I also believe it's not beneficial, as every other person has said today, to split Johnson and Wyandotte counties. We are all a part of the Kansas City Metro, and I, as many others have, would make the argument that our communities have much overlap in the people that live and work there. We are currently represented in a way that truly speaks for our community. I can't speak for all of Johnson County, and I surely can't speak for Wyandotte County, but I do speak for a group of friends, peers, neighbors, coworkers, and family that I know who are all concerned that this map will take away our chance to be heard in Washington. Current congressional maps were created by the courts and should be altered as little as necessary to accommodate population shifts. The Kansas City Metro is also currently whole within Kansas 3rd Congressional District and should remain in a single district as residents have shared interests in representation. Once again, I would implore you to think deeply about how redrawing these maps, which would intentionally take away accurate representation of the people in my community, would negatively impact Kansans. I want to see a map that is more fair and would be more representative of the voices in my community. The proposed maps, the Sunflower and the Astra maps, do not do that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Amy Carter. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Amy Carter. I'm a private citizen, and I do appreciate the opportunity to supply testimony in support of transparent and fair redistricting today. I have provided written and oral testimony every time we have been invited to do so throughout this redistricting process. I've only ever asked for a fair and transparent process, one that considered the commonalities of populations throughout the state. An independent commission would have been the easiest way to accomplish this. That would have been nice. I'm not sure if you received my updated testimony since I was rushed to submit it before yesterday's deadline, but I will read it to you now. Admittedly, I didn't always pay such close attention to politics, especially at the state level. I inherently trusted that the representatives we elected would be fair, maintain their integrity and trust that we had placed in them, and represent the interests of their constituents. My parents' Republican Party seemed to have earned that trust. Even if you didn't agree with some policy decisions, you didn't question that they thought they were doing what was best for their district, their state, their country. But my generation's Republican Party seems different, because in a state that already has some of the strictest voting laws in place, and from the party that enjoyed election wins across the state, why would they want to make it even more difficult for people to vote? And now that same party apparently doesn't believe it can win on its own merits and ideas, instead preferring to choose its voters rather than letting the voters choose them. But let me be more specific about the maps in question. The Astra Map submitted by Representative Croft cuts half of Wyandotte County out of the 3rd District and adds 2 rural counties that share nothing in common with the Kansas City Metro. Then, to account for the northern part of Wyandotte moving into the 2nd District, what do? You remove Lawrence from Douglas County and put it into the Big First, which traverses the entire state. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I listened to all the testimonies submitted during the town halls, and I don't recall anyone asking for any part of Wyandotte County or Lawrence to be placed in the rural Big First District. So either you weren't listening or you chose to ignore the testimony of every individual that took time out of their days and nights to gather their thoughts and testify. As a private citizen, I never wanted to be this involved in the redistricting process, but here we are. In contrast, the blue stem map submitted by Democrats keeps rural Kansas in one district, Northeast Kansas in another, urban Kansas City Metro together in the third, and the Wichita area in its own district. This is the map that actually places areas with common interests culturally, historically, and economically together. We live in a representative democracy. We elect you to represent our interests, and some of you want to take that representation away and just throw urban areas with votes you'd like to dilute into rural districts, all in the name of removing a U.S. representative who actually listens to and responds to her constituents. So I ask this body, what are you afraid of? Can you not win on your own merits and ideas rather than using gerrymandering to choose your voters? Please channel my parents' GOP and do the right thing for everyone in Kansas. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that testimony. Okay, I'm going to go back to Michael Williams. No? Is he on? Okay. And then the next one is Patricia Weiler. She hadn't come back on? Okay. So, all right, so that concludes all the conferees for today that were on the list that I had. One of the other things I wanted to comment, in your folders that we've emailed, it's this thick, it's 102 different pieces of testimony for you to go through and read, but it's all there for you as well. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to point out for the committee, we did track the bill numbers to the actual names of the maps that you have there. So I point out House Bill 2519 is the blue stem map. So I'm slowing. Blue stem map 2519. The sunflower map is House Bill 2520. Buffalo 2 is House Bill 2521. And the Ad Astra is House Bill 2522. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice. Okay. Okay. Just as a reminder, again, this is not the end of the process. And every time we're going to ask for more maps. So if there's somebody that has other maps to be considered and go through that process, we will continue to accept maps all the way until the last day that I'm allowed to by not being the exempt committee. So also, again, just as a reminder for this morning, we took testimony till 9 a.m. this morning. We didn't cut it off. We'll do the same thing tomorrow. Only thing I can promise, though, is after 7:30, I can't guarantee I'll get in so everybody can have time to read it. So if you have thoughts, if you have some amendments to testimony, if you testified today and you have some changes to that, obviously want to be a little bit more focused on the changes, but really, I appreciate you all coming today and providing your input as we go through this process. If you, as I say before, if it's 2 a.m. and you think of something to say, you can always email it to redistricting@klrd.ks.gov, and that gets to the rest of us in the committee. Okay. We owe tomorrow, researcher advisors going through a process, a little bit of a process map to lay out, and we'll cover that tomorrow. Fair enough? And I think that might clear everything up. And then we will resume in here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And as I mentioned, the other part. And at this point, we stand recess. One team, one Kansas.